Picture a body of water with no bottom, no horizon, so vast that from any shore, you simply cannot take it all in at a glance. It is not an ocean and not a bay. It is a lake, the most colossal lake on our planet, the Caspian Sea. But right now it is slipping away beneath our feet, and almost no one is saying it out loud. Subscribe to our channel. It is going to be interesting. The Caspian Sea stretches across the meeting point of Europe and Asia. Its area is about 370,000 square kilometers. That is larger than the territory of many European countries. The body of water runs from north to south for about 1,200 kilometers. In some places, its width exceeds 400 kilometers. The waters of the Caspian wash the shores of 5 countries: Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and Azerbaijan. Despite the word sea in its name, the Caspian is essentially a lake, an ordinary lake with no outlet to the world ocean. Yet its size is so impressive that people have called it a sea since ancient times. Real storms break out here, with waves reaching 5 meters and more. Large ships sail its waters and port terminals operate along its coast. Oil and gas are extracted from its seabed. The history of the Caspian Sea reaches millions of years into the past. It was once part of an enormous ancient body of water that scientists call the Tethys Sea. Over time, the crust of Earth changed, mountains rose higher, and the Caspian was cut off from other seas. That is how it became an enclosed body of water. Since then, its water level has changed many times under the influence of climate and natural processes. For thousands of years, the shores of the Caspian have been home to many peoples. Cities and trade routes were born here. Silk, spices, and furs were carried across these waters. Persian merchants, Russian Cossacks, Mongol warriors, they all saw the Caspian as a source of life and a vital road. Fish, water, trade. The sea gave all of this generously to the peoples around it. Today, major cities have grown up along the shores of the Caspian. Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, is one of the best known among them. Astrakhan in the north, an important Russian port. Aktau in Kazakhstan, a young city with a rich oil history. Turkmenbashi in Turkmenistan. Bandar Anzali in Iran. All of them are inseparably linked to the sea, depend on it, and today are watching it change before their eyes. The water level in the Caspian Sea began to drop noticeably back in the 1990s. Over that time, the sea has lost about 2 meters. At first glance, that may not seem like much, but for such a shallow area as the northern Caspian, it is an enormous loss. In some places there, the depth does not exceed 5 or 6 meters, and a 2-meter retreat of the water means the shoreline shifts by dozens of kilometers. The main river feeding the Caspian is the Volga. It provides about 80% of all freshwater inflow into the sea. Yet in recent decades, the Volga has grown noticeably shallower. Reservoirs have been built along its banks, and water is actively withdrawn for irrigating farmland, as well as for industrial and urban needs. Less and less of it reaches the Caspian every year. The second reason for the falling water level is climate warming. The Caspian is losing water not only because river inflow is shrinking, but also because evaporation is intensifying. When air temperature rises, water evaporates more rapidly. And the Caspian is located in an arid region, where summers can be extremely hot. Scientists have found that rising temperatures have become the main driver of the water level decline in recent years. The shoreline is retreating at an alarming speed. In the north, in the Russian section, huge stretches of seabed have been exposed. Where waves were lapping not long ago, dry, cracked ground now spreads out. Fishermen who once launched their boats right by their villages now have to drag them several kilometers over land before reaching the water. Ports built many years ago are now in an extremely difficult position. Piers designed for a certain depth now stand in shallow water, or even out in the open air. Ships cannot approach the shore. Part of the port infrastructure has lost all value. Authorities are forced either to dredge the bottom or build new piers farther from the old shoreline, and that requires enormous investment. Fishing on the Caspian has centuries-old traditions. People caught sturgeon, carp, roach, pike perch, bream, and many other species here. Caspian fish made their way to the tables of people in many countries. But today there are fewer and fewer fish. There are several reasons for this. The sea is getting shallower, the water is becoming polluted, and the familiar routes fish take to spawning grounds are being disrupted. The sturgeon, once a true symbol of the Caspian, has ended up on the brink of extinction. This fish produced the famous caviar that was highly prized around the world. In Soviet times, sturgeon were caught by the hundreds of thousands of tons per year. Today, their numbers have fallen so much that commercial fishing is effectively banned. Poaching is finishing off what remains of a once abundant population. The Caspian seal, the only seal species living in the sea, is going through a real tragedy. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were more than 1 million of them. Today, the population has shrunk to about 100,000 animals. The seals are suffering from water pollution, a depleted food supply, disease, and the fact that the ice where they give birth is beginning to melt earlier than usual. Every spring, bodies of dead seals are found on the shores of the Caspian. Sometimes the count reaches into the thousands. In 2021, several hundred animals died on the coast of Kazakhstan. In 2023, mass mortality happened again. Scientists connect these tragedies to a whole range of factors: water pollution, viral infections, lack of food, and stress from a rapidly changing habitat. The oil industry established itself on the Caspian back in the 19th century. Baku became one of the first cities in the world where industrial oil extraction was organized. Today, oil and gas platforms rise right in the middle of the sea. Pipelines stretch across its bottom. Every year, tens of millions of tons of oil are extracted here. This brings colossal revenue to coastal countries, but it also inflicts serious damage on the marine ecosystem. Oil spills have happened on the Caspian more than once. Oil slicks kill birds, fish, and marine animals. They settle on the bottom and poison the water for many years. In addition to oil, industrial wastewater from factories, agricultural fertilizers from fields, and household waste from cities flow into the sea. All of this gradually accumulates in an enclosed body of water with simply nowhere to go. Pollution of the Caspian is especially destructive precisely because it is a closed body of water. Unlike seas and oceans, which continuously exchange water with the world ocean, the Caspian has no such option. Everything that enters it stays there. Pollutants build up for decades. Self-purification happens extremely slowly. And the less water there is, the higher the concentration of harmful substances becomes. The 5 countries located on the shores of the Caspian could not agree for a long time even on the principles for dividing the sea. The dispute was over whether the Caspian should be considered a lake or a sea, since that directly determined which international rules would apply to dividing it. Only in 2018 was a convention on the legal status of the Caspian Sea signed, securing the rights of each coastal country. Despite the signed agreement, the environmental problems of the Caspian are still being solved with great difficulty. Each country is guided by its own interests. Some want to increase oil production. Others are concerned about the condition of the fishing industry. Still others demand compensation from neighbors for damage caused. A unified program to save the sea still does not exist. Every country is pulling the blanket its own way, while the sea continues to grow shallower. Local residents whose lives are tightly bound to the Caspian notice the changes more sharply than any scientists. Elderly fishermen say that fish used to be practically boiling in the water, while now they can catch only a handful in an entire day. Farmers in the Volga Delta watch channels dry up where boats passed not long ago. Children in coastal cities now swim in places completely different from where their parents swam, because the shore has shifted so much over the years. Scientists and climate experts look at the future of the Caspian with undisguised alarm. Their forecasts do not inspire optimism. If current trends do not change, by the end of this century, the water level in the Caspian may fall by another 10 meters, and in some scenarios by 18 meters. This would become a true catastrophe for the ecosystem, fishing, coastal cities, and millions of people. Here it is impossible not to remember the Aral Sea. It was once the 4th largest enclosed body of water on the planet. It was located between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. In the middle of the 20th century, Soviet leadership began a massive diversion of water, from the Amu Darya and Sir Darya rivers to irrigate cotton plantations. The consequences turned out to be truly catastrophic. By the end of the 20th century, the Aral Sea had practically ceased to exist. Only small, salty puddles remained of the once enormous body of water. The former seabed turned into salt flats and desert. Fishing boats rust in the middle of the sands, far from the water. Cities that used to be thriving ports found themselves hundreds of kilometers from the shore. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their jobs and were forced to leave their homes. The ecological disaster of the Aral Sea went down in history as one of the worst humanity has ever known. From the exposed bottom, the wind lifts salt and toxic dust that spreads for hundreds of kilometers around. Residents of the region suffer from respiratory diseases, cancer, and anemia. The climate around the former sea changed drastically. Winters became colder, summers became hotter, and rainfall became scarcer. The fate of the Aral Sea is a warning to all humanity, and the Caspian Sea risks following the same path, though much more slowly. Yes, the Caspian is far larger than the Aral. Yes, it is fed by living rivers, but the destructive factors are very similar. Climate change, excessive water withdrawal, pollution, and a complete absence of coordinated management of the body of water among several countries. Some experts believe the Caspian still has a chance to be saved. Unlike the Aral, it has not been completely deprived of its main source of nourishment. The Volga still carries its waters into the sea. The situation can be corrected if water withdrawal from rivers is reduced, pollution is decreased, strict limits on fishing are introduced, and genuine international cooperation is established. But this requires political will, which is clearly still lacking. In a number of coastal areas, attempts at adaptation are already underway. In Kazakhstan, dams and canals are being built to hold water in certain sections of the former shore. In Russia, programs are being developed to support the fishing industry and restore sturgeon populations. In Azerbaijan, officials are talking about tighter control over oil platforms. But all of these are scattered measures, not a single coordinated strategy. Coastal cities are forced to spend significant sums on rebuilding infrastructure. Where there used to be a busy waterfront and a beach, bare land now stretches out. The tourism business is suffering serious losses. Hotels built right by the water now find themselves far from the shore. Some fishing settlements even had to be relocated because they were overwhelmed not by a sea wave, but by dust from the exposed bottom. It is worth noting that the level of the Caspian has not always been falling. In the middle of the last century, the sea, on the contrary, was rising. In the 1980s and 1990s, the water advanced so rapidly that it flooded thousands of hectares of land, buildings, and roads along the coast. Back then, people suffered from flooding. Now everything is exactly the opposite. This clearly shows that the Caspian is extremely sensitive to any changes in climate and water balance. The Caspian Sea has a truly unique animal world. Species live here that exist nowhere else on Earth. The Caspian lamprey, the Caspian kilka, the Caspian salmon, the Caspian seal. These creatures adapted to life in an enclosed, brackish body of water over millions of years of evolution. If the sea continues to grow shallower and more polluted, many of them will vanish forever without a trace. For many years, the Caspian kilka was the backbone of the local fishing industry. It was caught in enormous quantities, and people made canned food, meal, and fish oil from it. But at the end of the 20th century, a comb jelly entered the sea, a small marine creature brought by ships from the Black Sea in ballast water. This newcomer consumed the plankton that the kilka fed on. The fish population collapsed several times over in an extremely short period. The collapse of kilka stocks triggered an entire chain reaction. Seals that fed on kilka lost their main food source. Birds nesting on the shores of the Caspian also lost part of their usual diet. Fishing villages that lived off the kilka catch were left without income. One tiny organism, after ending up in a foreign environment, destroyed the entire food chain of a huge body of water. The water temperature in the Caspian is steadily rising. Over the past half-century, it has increased by about 1 degree. This may seem insignificant, but for fish and other aquatic organisms, even slight warming can become critical. Spawning times change, habitats shift, and some species are displaced by others. An ecosystem that formed over millions of years is being rebuilt faster than it can adapt. The Volga Delta, which flows into the northern Caspian, is one of the richest natural corners of Europe and Asia. Thousands of species of birds, fish, and plants live here. Fields of blooming lotuses attract tourists from all over the world every summer. But the delta is also going through hard times. Channels are becoming shallow, individual branches are drying up, and the area of wetlands is steadily shrinking. This harms both nature and tourism at the same time. The Iranian coast of the Caspian is the most densely populated. Tens of millions of people live here. The provinces of Gilan and Mazandaran are famous for their nature, rice fields, and fishing traditions. Iranian fishermen also note that catches are falling year after year. At the same time, Iran long opposed the laying of new oil pipelines along the bottom of the Caspian, fearing environmental consequences. This created additional tensions among the coastal states. Kazakhstan has the longest Caspian coastline. The country actively produces oil on its shelf. The Kashagan field, one of the largest in the world, is located right in the waters of the sea. Production here involves serious environmental risks. Leaks of hydrogen sulfide, which poses a deadly danger to all living things, have happened more than once. Nevertheless, production does not stop, because oil brings colossal revenue. Turkmenistan has significant oil and gas reserves on its section of the Caspian Shelf. For a long time, the country stayed on the sidelines of international talks on Caspian issues, following a policy of neutrality. However, environmental troubles do not pass it by. The coastal areas of Turkmenistan suffer equally from the falling water level and growing pollution. Russia has historically viewed the Caspian as a zone of its influence. Astrakhan and the surrounding areas have lived from fishing since ancient times. The Caspian Flotilla, a special naval formation, is based in this region. But today, the main concern for Russians is not military, but environmental. The shallowing of the northern Caspian, the shallowest part of the sea, directly affects the interests of fishermen and residents of coastal villages. International organizations have repeatedly drawn attention to the problems of the Caspian. The United Nations Environment Program supported projects to study the marine ecosystem. The Caspian Environment Program was created. However, funding remained insufficient, and political disagreements among the countries prevented joint measures from being put into practice. Beautiful declarations about preserving nature never grew into real action on the scale required. Scientists from different countries continuously monitor the state of the Caspian with satellites, buoys, and research expeditions. Data accumulates over years, models are built, and forecasts are developed. But there is a huge gap between scientific knowledge and political decision-making. Governments delay, postpone, and wait for a more convenient moment. The sea does not wait. Is there hope? Yes, there is. Humanity has already saved bodies of water that seemed doomed. The Great Lakes in North America were heavily polluted by industrial wastewater in the middle of the 20th century. Through the joint efforts of the United States and Canada, degradation was stopped, and the ecosystem was restored step by step. Baikal and Russia also faced serious threats, and public pressure helped achieve the closure of the most dangerous enterprises. The path to restoring the Caspian runs through several essential steps. First of all, water withdrawal from the rivers that feed the sea must be reduced. Rational use of the Volga resources is especially important here. Then industrial and household pollution must be sharply reduced. Oil companies must bear real responsibility for spills and leaks. Poaching must be prosecuted strictly and inevitably under the law. Restoring fish stocks takes time and patience. Fish hatcheries that raise sturgeon and other valuable species are already operating in several coastal countries. However, the number of juveniles released is clearly not enough to make up for years of damage. Funding for these programs must be increased many times over, while strict control over catch volumes is introduced at the same time. The Caspian seal needs special protection. To do this, protected marine zones must be created where oil production, shipping, and fishing are significantly restricted. Seal haul-out and breeding sites must be completely closed to any economic activity. In addition, water pollution must be reduced because it undermines the immune system of the animals and makes them vulnerable to disease. Coastal cities and villages need to be thinking about tomorrow right now. If the water level continues to fall, some settlements will end up far from the shore. It is necessary to plan in advance how transport routes will change, where new piers will appear, and how the fishing industry will be rebuilt. Preparing for change ahead of time is far wiser than later scrambling to clean up the consequences. Climate change, the main long-term threat to the Caspian, requires a global response. Until humanity reduces greenhouse gas emissions, the temperature on the planet will continue to rise. That means evaporation from the surface of the Caspian will steadily intensify. Solving this problem through the efforts of only 5 coastal countries is impossible. The efforts of the entire global community are needed. The Caspian Sea is not just a natural object. It is a living system that has fed, watered, connected, and inspired millions of people for many thousands of years. Its fate is determined by the decisions being made today. And whether this sea remains on the maps our descendants will see depends on whether the 5 countries, scientists, business, and ordinary people can find the readiness within themselves to act together. The Caspian Sea is growing shallower. This is a fact that cannot be denied and must not be ignored. The water level is falling, the shores are retreating, fish are disappearing, seals are dying, ports are emptying, and the 5 countries still cannot develop a common rescue strategy. The history of the Aral Sea showed what inaction leads to. We still have time to prevent the Caspian from meeting the same fate, but that time is not endless. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and write in the comments what you think about the fate of the Caspian Sea. Your opinion matters.